But here's what he did.
Rhyme it. Do you know how to rhyme it? Oh, please just rhyme it.
Then he really gets into
Do
it.
you know how to rhyme it?
Yes,
Of course. We will
you don't even
be
have to think
rocking
about
LA. So let's rhyme it today. Rhyme it. We are gonna rhyme it. Just
Yeah,
rhyme
that's
it.
where he just rammed it.
I like that.
Everybody.
Amazing.
I'm not going to remember any of it.
That's the way to go.
All over the Rams today and rhyme it.
I mean, now he's like on his feet.
How are you guys?
Whose
house? Wow.
Rhyme it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Rams Brothers the Pod. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined by the other host, Nick. And Nick, how are you tonight?
Oh, I'm great, Dean. Just bought this new hat. I'm trying to figure out what side it's on. Right here, Super Bowl champs on the side.
Oh, he's feeling good after the win.
Yep, we got the win, and I was like, you know what? I promised I'd give somebody something if the Rams covered 11, and they did. So I was like, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to buy myself something nice too.
Oh, so I was going to say, what did you buy for the person who is going to be the lucky receiver of your gift?
Well, I don't know. I'll say something wacky during this episode, and the first person to tweet it at you will win.
No, we'll keep it a surprise. That sounds good. It seems like it's buying merchandise is always more enticing after a W. Of course, you want to support your team in every moment, but after a good win, going into a bye week with a little bit of momentum, maybe there's a reason to get yourself a new hat. I like the idea. I
never had one that was just. I mean, I have a black one that has this LA logo, but it's kind of hard to see, and this just is very big and LA. So
it's bold, just like your personality.
Exactly.
Before we get into this episode, Nick, do you want to jump on Bet Online?
Yeah, absolutely. Bet Online. Football is back, and Bet Online remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all your sports wagering info, Bet Online features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest, always the easiest. Bet on all your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code BLEAV to receive your rewards. Bet Online, where the game starts.
Promo code BELIEVE.
I kind of like Broncos country. Let's ride Monday night.
Oh, you're crazy.
I don't know. Broncos. I guess I only bet on them twice, and there was the two games they won. So
I was going to say, I guess they're due. Before we jump into this episode, real quick, can you guys do us a favor and like, subscribe, and maybe even leave us a comment, whatever you'd like. We're testing out something new. We're going to give it a shot. Nick, I need your feedback.
Okay.
What did you think?
It's just so funny because to the listeners, it just like cuts me off and just has a little like sting. But if you're watching, it says like, subscribe, and it's a cute little cartoon graphic. Can I just hear it one more time?
No. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, comment, help us feed our families. Okay, so let's
help
start
me feed my cat.
Yeah, help Nicky feed his cat. Okay, starting with the Rams offensive line, I think obviously the Rams came out and won the game 24-10, and there was a lot of different things that happened within this game that you could break down, you could evaluate. We're going to do that all throughout this episode. But to start it off, I want to kick it off with Alaric Jackson. I've renamed the offensive line, and I need your stamp of approval on this nickname. Alaric Jackson's 5. What do we think?
I love it.
He loves it.
I had one too, but I'll give my nickname later.
All right. We'll hear it as we progress in this episode. But the Rams is starting offensive line. It's Alaric Jackson at left tackle, Bobby Evans at left guard, Jeremiah Coloni at center, Oday Aboshi at right guard, and Rob Havenstein at right tackle to finish this game after Joe Noteboom unfortunately sustained a ruptured Achilles that's going to put him out for the entire year.
Prayers
Only
up
played
to
9
Noteboom.
snaps in this game. What were you going to say?
Prayers up to Noteboom.
Prayers up
Speedy
to Big
recovery.
Boom. Yeah, speedy recovery. Got the big contract. It's just so unfortunate. He's dealt with some other injuries, so I'm wondering if that's, an injury to the knee or an injury to the lower body. That could be just a compound injury that you just had wear and tear on one part of your leg, one part of your body, and then eventually something else gives. It's not a great sign for your left tackle to rupture his Achilles. Obviously, as they're pivoting and stepping back, they need all that momentum, they need all that energy and balance. And it's unfortunate. And I saw reports that were like likely out for the year. It's like, this is not a Cam Akers situation. Joe Newcomb's not going to magically try and come back from an Achilles to play in the Super Bowl.
No,
it's just
there's no need. Guy gave 110% effort on a failing offensive line this year. Goes down, incredibly unfortunate. And then now you have the Franken line. That's my nickname that I was waiting to pull out, because it's a Frankenstein O line. It's just people getting pulled. It's all over the place. It's always new. And, you know, it's got me doing the monster mash on my couch when Stafford throws a pick six.
I'm wondering if, and, you know, it's such a strange situation how Noteboom, like, you don't even almost want to talk about some of the deficiencies that he's had in his game this season, because there's so many rotating pieces, because it is a Franken line. Like, it wasn't having the best of seasons regardless, but it was a revolving door, very much so, at the left guard position. And there's no real stability on this entire offensive line outside of Rob Havenstein at this point. Noteboom, 6 games, 23 pressures and 5 sacks allowed. Like, you know, there's a lot that you can kind of tee up to that. You can single out Joe Noteboom and say he's made individual mistakes. He's also gone up against some of the top pass rushers in the league to start the season. So again, wear and tear, combination of revolving doors at left guard and center. The whole left side of the offensive line has just been in shambles the entire season. They've had, Nick, 8 offensive linemen on their roster to start the season. 6 of them have been injured. Only Bobby Evans and Rob Havenstein remain from the roster to start the entire season. Everybody else was either on the practice squad or they were brought in via free agency. And that's the situation that they're in. Jeremiah Coloni was a cop a couple of months ago. He was a cop patrolling the streets, you know, doing his thing. And now
he's starting for
the Rams. He broke his leg a couple of years ago. He thought his football career was over, joined the police academy. And now, you know, he's back on the Los Angeles Rams starting at center. So, he allowed 4 pressures yesterday versus Carolina, and Aboshi, who stepped in at right guard, allowed just 1 pressure. But I mean, Nick, you're at a point where the bye week's coming. We've been talking about getting players back, and now you're eventually going to get Brian Allen back to play center, who was your Super Bowl winning center. So it's obviously an essential piece. And then you're going to have back, you know, at least 2 starting offensive linemen going into San Francisco week.
Yeah, I just think, based on the nicknames that we have given it, the fact that they were able to put together drives against a somewhat competent Panthers defense late in the game. This team is almost like the opposite of what the Eagles are, where they start out as slow as possible and then, you know, finally start doing well in the second half, where the Eagles is like almost the inverse.
Yeah, it was like Arizona the first 4 weeks of the season, where they couldn't score in the first half, and then all of a sudden, an explosion.
And then, you know, you see in the stats where the Rams have like the 31st lowest points in the fourth quarter with 3 total points. And then, you know, they start doing stuff and they start actually making like these powerful plays. And you know what? I think it all starts and stops with Allen Robinson in this case, because you have to, we said it last week, you had to get him involved to get people off a Cup. Cup is going to be doubled. And more often than not, Robinson should have had 2 touchdowns yesterday, but they missed a blatant face mask. And when you can get the ball to these other people, I mean, you got to get it out fast, because you got, you know, cops on the O-line. But they did a good job. And then you start getting people like Powell and Skoranek involved, and then all of a sudden you got 24 points on the board.
Yeah, a couple of things there. A couple of really good points. Matthew Stafford's average depth per target yesterday was 4.7 yards.
Lowest in his career, I saw, right?
Yeah, it was one of the lowest of his career. It was definitely lowest of the season. So, I mean, we're sitting there begging for a short passing game over the last couple of weeks. We got it. And now you're getting even distribution throughout your entire receiving core. Allen Robinson had 5 catches for 63 yards. He was the second leading receiver, an average of 12.6 yards and a touchdown. Like you said, should have had 2. Cooper Kupp had 7 for 80. Ben Skoranek, the iconic Skoranek, 4 for 50, 5 for 40 rather. Brandon Powell, 4 for 27. Ronnie Rivers, Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, Tyler Higbee all had a catch. Henderson had 2. So you're getting more of an even distribution.
Rivers had 1.
Yeah, your average depth of target is down, and you're able to make some more things happen because you're getting your ball into the hand of your playmakers, and you're able to avoid pressure and compensate for some of the deficiencies you have up front. So all in all, I thought it was a really, really good game plan by the Rams. And Matthew Stafford came out and said, you try to make the defense defend every single blade of grass. And sometimes that's throwing it over their heads. Sometimes that's running screens, Stafford said. Other times it's running around the edge, running it down the middle, whatever it is. We try to give the defense a lot to look at. And I thought Sean did an outstanding job of calling a game for us and setting those guys up in great opportunities. And then those guys executed it. I mean, Robinson's 5 catches on 6 targets, Nick, that was a touchdown with a touchdown. And that's a season high.
Yeah. And look, I still don't think the cadence is there between Stafford and Robinson, just simply because both of those balls were jump balls. Like
Sure.
two of those balls were jump balls. He gets up and he makes a play there, but still, just getting that developed, it feels like we were behind and now we're starting to catch up. You go into the bye strong, and you're going into halftime. It's 10 to 7. And you're just like, their offense isn't going to do anything else in this entire game. Like, because I'm pretty sure all of the completions for PJ were behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah,
so,
I think
we knew we almost got the benefit of them establishing we're tanking this year on this game.
I mean, that plus they just established before the game even started, we're not even going to let PJ Walker take a shot downfield.
No, like not at all, which is why I don't think the defense should be that much of a topic of conversation today, even though I do think they did a good job of stopping the run. Right?
Yeah, and there's also like the Robbie Anderson saga. Like your Z is not on offense to be able to take the top off of your defense, and he's on the sideline trying to wreak havoc and getting.
And now he's off the team in our division.
Yeah, now he's off the team and he's in the NFC West.
Yeah,
but Hollywood Brown just went down, so he's a direct Hollywood Brown replacement. Yep.
Oh, that's horrible.
Hollywood's going to be out for 6 weeks.
Oh,
foot injury, I believe it is. So it was a direct replacement. I mean, it's a stopgap. Let's bring in Robbie Anderson. It's not going to cost us much.
And clearly he's befuddled on his current team. He wants out.
I mean, that whole team's befuddled. Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray just can't seem to get it together. He may be one of the next coaches that gets fired.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina and Arizona right now are just they don't really know what to do. They need some direction. They need to bring in a guy.
Yeah, those were our get right games in the beginning of the season. But I mean, to your point on Allen Robinson, you were talking about the 2 jump balls. I think most importantly for the future of this offense, they used Robinson, I think, in a couple of different ways. Obviously, on the fade,
you need to get him involved like Robert Woods.
Yeah, and I think they did a little bit. I mean, talking about mismatches with contested catches and jump balls and fades, but they also used him as a motion player to clear out that 20-yard catch for Kupp, which was Robert Woods' role. I remember seeing that, and I remember it like it was 2017. Robert Woods was right back on the offense, so that was good. And then the quick game where you're able to just on early downs, just let him be underneath, let him be 3-5 yards out, make a catch. He's a yards after the catch player once he has the ball in his hands. And then you could use him as the asset that you thought he was. And I like we talked about, Nick, I think 3 weeks ago at this point, 3 weeks ago, where we were just talking about 2 targets turns into, or 5 targets can turn into 7 targets, can turn into 7 catches, can turn into season highs, can turn into multi-touchdown games. And that's what we're starting to get with Allen Robinson. And it felt like this was the kind of game that, thank God, we were able to kind of instill an offensive game plan that allowed for Allen Robinson to be able to have 5 catches and a touchdown.
Yeah. I mean, just speaking on that 2017 comparison, I'm watching this game. I'm seeing a lot of jet sweeps.
Tons.
I'm seeing like more than I've ever seen. I'm seeing a lot of like smart running back play where you're kind of having like unique designed runs. Kind of like little pitch routes, like a little Goff to Gurley action, except it's Stafford to Rivers. I mean, there had to have been something going on with McVay saying like, Cam, I love you, but you're not doing enough to be getting all these carries, and I can replace you. And then you felt like that's why we had this kid like almost as like an ego fight. I mean, Maybe I'm looking too far into it, but
no, that's exactly how I felt when I saw Ronnie Rivers when I think they were lined up on the 4-yard line on their own 4-yard line, and Ronnie Rivers had 2 hands on his thighs and he was in the end zone. I'm like, is Sean McVay going to give this guy a carry here? Like if he fumbles, like you're talking about just worst case scenario. And I think that was his stubbornness to not have Darrell Henderson on the field, to not have Cam Akers on the field, but let's put in Ronnie Rivers when we're
I hated that. Like it should be Henderson every time.
I was going to say, then they go jet sweep to Tutu Atwell to get him out of that territory, which is just like, and that's when Dad texted us and said, I feel like I'm watching the Rams' B team right now because you're watching Ronnie Rivers and Brandon Powell and Tutu Atwell and maybe Cooper Kupp.
I mean, that's the thing about the NFL. It's not about where you get picked. It's about what you do with the moments when you're playing. And a lot of these guys are like B squad people. And something from myself who was a B squad native for basketball and travel leagues, never quite good enough to make the A team. It really resonates with me. So I really enjoyed seeing the B team kind of step up. I mean, but then Carolina was like the misfits of the misfits. So
yeah. Hey, I played a little B team basketball there. It wasn't just you. It's a situation where the next guy up is going to be one of the most important players on the offense. And that's just the nature of this league. It's also the nature of this season. And it seems like opportunities are coming out of nowhere. And this Cam Akers saga, I think, is so interesting. I think it's a mistake by Cam Akers, right? We saw what happened to Deshaun Jackson last year. It was almost exactly a calendar year when Deshaun Jackson came out and said, I don't think I want to play for the Rams anymore. I think I'm going to go play for the Raiders. He then, they couldn't find a trade partner. They couldn't. I mean, who's going to take 34-year-old Deshaun Jackson, who's stubborn, outspoken? And they ended up trading him. Yeah, they waived him, and then the Raiders came in and scooped him up.
No. The Ravens met with him today.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I heard he was talking about coming to potentially playing for the Eagles. And then the Ravens actually met with him today. And I mean, at 35 years old, I don't really know what else he could possibly add to your team besides maybe 1 or 2 big plays for 4 games. But I mean, I just feel like it's that same exact situation where you're going to see a headline come out in the next couple of days that says Rams waive Cam Akers after failing to meet trade request. And then your date is going to be very, very similar to what it was last year on November 2nd of 2021. So
I really, really, really hope that that's not the case. You said mistake by Akers, which kind of I had to like hold my tongue there for a second.
Oh, sure.
Because Akers did so much work during last season after going down to come back and play during the playoffs and make crucial runs during the playoffs and in the Super Bowl. And yes, you can also add that he almost cost us the entire Tampa Bay game. But needless to say, he was important in all of those victories. And he did so much rehabbing to get to that point. And then now this year, people are saying it's a mental thing. But I also think it has to do with McVay not trusting him enough. So mistake by Akers, sure. I think you should put a little bit of the blame on the coaching staff, though, just because he is capable of greatness. We've seen it. Mm-hmm. And we know the track record with McVay with these running backs. I mean, the whole Gurley saga. And in that case, I guess you can kind of lead Team Sean because we saw Gurley on the Falcons and it wasn't really anything. It was a lot of nothing. So maybe he sees, he's watching him a lot more. Maybe he sees a true stark decline. But he's young, man. He has a lot in the tank. And McVay has no room for complacency. If you are not good enough, you're not on the roster.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be a combination of that. Plus, maybe it was in Sean McVay's ear about how certain plays should be ran.
Which is what seems like is the media is pushing. It's like he is upset with his role in the team,
Well, at
And-
first it was personal, which I thought was like a blatant lie. And then you feel obligated almost to be like, oh my gosh, hope he's okay. Like, hope there isn't something personal going on with his family or whatever it may be. But like that rumor was squashed within 24 hours. And now it's coming out that they aren't compatible and they want to help each other try to find a trade partner and get a fresh new start. And like, that's all very odd stuff to come out from a locker room like this. I mean, obviously Deshaun Jackson's kind of an outspoken personality. Cam Akers seemed like the kind of guy that would commit himself and do whatever he needed to do for the team. Example A, B, and C was him coming back from the Achilles injury last year, doing everything he could in rehab, trying to come back and win a Super Bowl for the other players on his team, trying to support a running back group that was really only made of Sony Michel at the time. So, I mean, there were opportunities for him to come back and make a splash. The scary thing is at this point, Nick, is there a trade partner? What kind of trade compensation is on the table? What does his future look like with a different team? You know, all questions that I don't think that, you know, all players consider when they're like, I want out, because there's no guarantee to fill a role on a different team.
I feel like the market right now is probably low. And
Very.
I think the Rams are not the best. I mean, they like show their hand, right? I'm all in. I got 2 jacks. Hopefully this is enough. Like the teams know if they don't find a partner, they're just going to cut their losses with them. And that's how they operate. Like, for better or worse, it worked last year. But it's not the best when you're trying to, you know, play happy with other teams and grab somebody. I mean, Belichick played ball last year and they got Sony for pretty much like dirt cheap. So
yeah, I think a 5th round pick.
I honestly, I feel like if he does get moved, I'm also seeing reports now that the relationship might not be like, it may be salvageable, but that's what they said
about Goff.
Yeah, before they traded Goff.
Yeah, I remember.
Marriage counseling.
Yep, marriage counseling was the term. Yep.
Yeah, but I think we could have and this is for the OG Rams fans. I guess not that OG, but a Nick Foles, Sam Bradford situation where we get a running back for a running back. I'm looking at some people in Jacksonville right now, and I feel like they have a good room that they could afford, you know, mixing it up and maybe because I'm sure the Rams will throw in some.
Yeah, I'm looking at Washington because I know that McVay has ties there, and I know that Antonio Gibson is a good running back, and they got McKissick there, and they got, who's the other kid that's just running over people? The kid who was
Carson Wentz.
He was shot and came back. Gibson, what's his?
Oh, he's not going anywhere.
He's not going.
That's like the whole team.
He's going to be their starting back for the entire season, and McKissick too. And then you somehow mix in Antonio Gibson whenever you feel like it. So maybe there's an opportunity to trade a player for a player. So it's definitely on the radar. I think the Bears have a couple of backs too, potentially maybe a back that they could.
Don't want to see, Dean.
Let's hear it.
And maybe I'm wrong. And maybe we just want to just continue mortgaging the future and we'll pay the piper eventually. I don't want to see like 2027, 2028 first round picks. We lose Cam and then we get McCaffrey.
No, you can't afford McCaffrey. He's the most expensive back in the league. I mean, you're going to take on the contract. It's not like he is in a rookie contract and you could take him on and then pay him again next year. Like,
it feels like
no shot. I don't think there's a 0% chance. I
don't know. I think it would be like a 1-year thing. Like, come get your ring. Like, we have a lot of other good stuff here. Clearly, we're gonna get OBJ back.
The one thing we don't know is McCaffrey's mental, right? Like, if he is comfortable with the situation that he's in Carolina, he feels like he's getting the lion's share of the carries, and he is the guy and he's the face of the franchise. Like, we may not know his relationship with Steve Wilkes, the whole Robbie Anderson situation, how that unfolded, how DJ Moore feels, how Brian Burns feels.
You have to be frustrated.
Yeah, I'm sure.
If you're in Carolina, it has to be frustrating, especially when you bring in a new quarterback this year. Even if it is Baker Mayfield, there has to be some kind of hope.
Do we send a DM to Steven Jackson to have him send a DM to Christian McCaffrey and say maybe there's more to life than being on the same team for 10 years?
Me and Steven are close. You like a couple of my tweets.
I was going to say Steven Jackson went deep into the playoffs with the Patriots, I think a couple of years after he left the Rams. There are opportunities with these. Yeah, and I think I played for Atlanta too, where he went to the playoffs. Opportunities for some of these younger backs, knowing that their longevity in the league is a little bit shorter than it once was. McCaffrey's not a big dude, and you'd see him just getting lifted off his feet by Jalen Ramsey, and like and he's also always hurt every week, and he's always on the injury report. And I mean, I know he makes a joke out of it, but we don't truly know what's inside of McCaffrey's head.
I think there's a lot to say for these guys that actually stick around and want to stick around. And I think you see it more in football than basketball, because look how fast you can turn it around too. I mean, the Giants are 5-1, the Jets are 4-2, Falcons are 3-3. Like, you bring in the right personnel. Some of these guys are probably like, I don't want to move. I've established my life here. Like, my kids go to school here. You know what I mean? Like, I know the career is like number one, but I'm sure like maybe McCaffrey's the kind of guy that's just like, hey, I'll see this ship through. Like, keep me here, entice people to come here, get a coach here that knows how to use me well. And then, don't get a coach that is 0-17 when he gives up 17 points.
Yeah, right. Like you said, look at the Giants this year. Look at the Jets, and look at the Bengals 2 years ago. They were the worst team, one of the worst teams in the league. I think one of the worst records in the league.
They suck again, so that's not.
I know, but then they came out and they went to the Super Bowl the year after. So I mean, I guess there's merit to the conversation and the argument of, you could be the worst team in the league, but if you still have some of the core pieces and you feel like the foundation is good with a head coach, with a GM in place, then yeah, you could stay in the same spot. But I don't know how certain that whole organization feels, especially some of their key players. Like, do I want to move? Do I want to switch gears? I mean, LA is like a vacation for the next, 4 or 5 months until they have to restructure their deal.
But some people like Von Miller, I treated it like it was a vacation. So
yeah, right. Exactly. And on the injuries, going back to some of the injuries, because we're going to be talking about getting some players back, and then we'll transition over to the defense. I know, Nick, you mentioned they don't need to be talked about too much in this episode, but we'll touch on them.
They did. I mean, they gave up literally 3 points in the one scripted drive. So They did a fantastic job, but that's what you're supposed to do when the quarterback doesn't complete a pass behind the line of scrimmage or in front of the line of scrimmage. Yeah,
exactly. Negative plays, tackles for a loss, making sure you're wrapping up. I thought they did a good job of doing that, and they're getting some players back. So McVay just said today that he expects Brian Allen, Van Jefferson, Troy Hill, Kobe Durant, the land shark, and Bobby Brown all to be back after the bye week. Bobby Brown, if you guys remember, a couple of snaps in the preseason where he looked like an explosive pass rusher. And I noticed that Marquise Copeland is dipping into some of Greg Gaines' snap share. So maybe there's some competition on that defensive line to be able to generate some additional pressure, close out gaps, and maybe Gaines' stock is starting to fall a little bit. He's not reaping the benefits of the Von Miller and Aaron Donald double teams constantly.
I saw that, and I felt like it was like I read it, and it was like, is he injured, or is he just not really who he was? And that was my exact thought. I was like, no, he's probably exactly the same. It's just he doesn't have Von Miller being an absolute hunk beast, to also have to stop. It's like guys like Gaines are going to be able to make, bigger plays when he's the third guy you have to worry about. I'm still team Dominican Sue. I still think they should bring him on like today.
I think you're going to like Bobby Brown. And coming off of a suspension, he's going to be coming out guns blazing. Everybody's going to like Bobby Brown. He's a good player. It's just it's to be determined. But, everybody forgets because of the suspension. Then Jordan Fuller. Ooh. I forgot that Jordan Fuller was on IR. I know he hurt his hamstring. I thought it was going to be a 2 to 4 week injury. He was assigned to the IR. I think it was after the 49ers game or the Cowboys game. He's targeting a November 20th comeback versus the Saints. That's in about 4 weeks or so, 3 weeks. David Edwards on the IR targeting the same comeback November 20th versus the Saints. Coleman Shelton, high ankle sprain, out 4 to 6 weeks. Trayman Akram, obviously out for the year. Kyron Williams, running back, seems like a little bit of a slower return. I thought he would be ready potentially after the bye. McVay said that Kyron is a possibility to enter into the 21-day practice window after the bye week. So he'll start practicing, getting up to speed, and then a determination will be made on how he looks in practice, how comfortable he feels. And then I think that's going to be your Ronnie Rivers and Cam Akers replacement, because that was their initial plan for him in the beginning of the season when he got hurt on the first snap of the game. Still disagree with the fact that he was playing special teams. And then lastly, Travin Howard was on the NFI list. He hurt his core during non-football activity in July and had surgery back then, and we haven't really heard an update since. So that's essentially all of the injuries that we've been dealing with. A couple of players you're getting back. Players are still dealing with injury. But I think by hopefully December 1st, you should have your full 53-man roster with a couple of potential pieces. And as a reminder, whenever players go on the IR, it opens up an additional roster spot. So there's always going to be more opportunity to bring in additional players as the season progresses. Right before the trade deadline, that's when the Rams could potentially make their splash. So
that's how you get Malcolm Brown on the roster in 2020.
I was going to say, and that's why I feel like as long as everything's set by the end of November going into December, and you could play out the last 6 weeks of your season on the right path, you're going to have a chance in this league, and that's just how it is.
I'm actually shocked they didn't call Deshaun this year. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah.
Well, I mean, Tutu Atwell got 2 snaps in this last game. So, I mean, is there really a role for Deshaun Jackson now with Brandon Powell coming out and stepping up?
Well, I mean, over the top guy.
Yeah.
That's the role. I mean, Tutu got one of those last week, right?
Mm-hmm, got one of them. But, I mean, he had the jet sweep, and I think he played one other snap in this game. 2 snaps total for Tutu Atwell. So
loving what Powell brings, though. Like, absolutely love what Brandon Powell can bring to this team, which is just a special teams, just like, fast-moving workhorse guy. So he's evasive. He breaks tackles. I can't sing his praises enough. He's my Ben Skowronek.
Yeah, I mean, he was getting targeted yesterday. He had 3 carries for 13 yards, an average of 4.3 yards per carry. I think that was third highest on the day. And then he also had 4 receptions for 27 yards, an average of 6.8. So, I mean, you're getting him involved in the offense. That's 7 times more than what we've seen with Brandon Powell in previous weeks. So, yeah, and he's one of those guys, Nick, he's so elusive that he feels like if he gets tackled by a shoestringer the last second, like he's going to get up and he's going to be pissed off. But he didn't.
Yeah. He did have that one. He broke like 2 tackles and then he got brought down and he stood up and he was like, shit.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy that is pissed off when he doesn't have a chance to score. And he always wants to be in the end zone. He always wants the ball in his hands. And that's the kind of player you want on your team.
Yeah, exactly. He's just got that LA mentality.
Yeah, exactly. And then transitioning over to the defense, per Jordan Rodriguez, since the bad week 1 loss against the Buffalo Bills, the Rams' defense has given up under 18 points total per game in the last 5 games, and for an average of 13 points per game allowed by the defenses from weeks 2 to 6. So Bobby Wagner came out yesterday and said, we control our own destiny. I like to hear that from a former Super Bowl champ who's hungry for another. They're currently 4th in offensive points allowed. They've given up 16 per game total. And you have to win football games like that. Like that takes you all the way back to 2019 when, you're winning games 17-16, and it just doesn't feel like it's enough week to week. And in front of them right now in terms of defense, Nick, it's San Francisco, Buffalo, and Denver.
Like, yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing about Denver, and I know this has nothing to do with our actual defense, but they should be 500 right now, minus a weird Colts game. But that's how good a defense can be. That offense is like dead last in everything. But if you have that good of a defense, you can afford having a Jimmy G as your quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, that's why this Rams defense holding teams essentially to under 20 points. I know the scoreboard's not going to say that because Stafford's giving them like 6 a week. Mm-hmm. But holding these teams to under 20 points 3 weeks in a row, absolutely huge for what the ceiling is for this team.
This is me and you when they allow less than 16 points per game. It's a picture of The Rock and Rampage.
I thought I was going to send that to you, but I thought we said no Rock anymore.
I was terrified. I mean, we're seeing The Rock being promoted right before a game that we are in fear of losing at home. And
oh my God,
they come out and pull it out.
for the first, when we go into the tunnel, it's 10-7. I'm like, I might have to turn this game off. Like they turned it around. They did, but the first two quarters were pathetic Rams football. They were. It was really tough. So,
yeah, but then you get to the third quarter, and the Rams' defense holds the Panthers to 17 yards.
Who do you think is just? I mean, McVay's going into that tunnel and he's coming out with his face just insanely red because he's just screaming. Is my thought process.
I don't know if he's that kind of coach.
No, come on. You read the reports with Goff about how he would just yell at him and he would just sit there.
Yeah, I mean, yelling, I feel like it's like a loud, constructive criticism. Like, I don't see him like blowing his head off with steam coming out of his ears. I feel like he'll be really, really specific in his criticism and kind of go at a couple of people directly. I don't know if it's like a scream at the whole group kind of mentality. I guess it depends on what week it is. But
so here's my thought process.
Mm-hmm.
You have two ends of the spectrum here. For those listening, I have a diagram with two pens. You have on the far quiet side, you have Jeff Fisher, who loses 3 games in a row, cracks a beer and says, all right, the season starts tomorrow. And then you have John Gruden on the other side, who will be yelling at you for literally everything. And I think McVay is in the middle, probably leans I would say he's probably 60% closer to Gruden on that scale. So I think – but I think he's a professional, so it's going to be hard to see those moments. But I think behind closed doors, he is, he's probably laying into these guys.
Yeah, and you know what? You can't come out and say, I don't know, maybe he doesn't yell at the entire group. Like, I'm sure he's had moments where he's just unleashed his fury on the entire group. Like, I'm sure going into halftime, a couple of those 49ers games or a couple of those games in November where it felt like you had all the momentum in your building on your side, you had all the players that you needed, and then, everything collapses for 3 weeks, and that's where you can kind of unleash everything. But then, it's a situation where it seems like players respond, even if he's irrationally yelling. It seems like these players know exactly where it's coming from, and then you win, you have the Super Bowl in your back pocket, and then that's the difference in your diagram. The one guy has a Super Bowl victory, and the other guy does not.
Yeah, almost does. Came really close.
Almost.
Like 3 yards shy.
Yep. Mike Jones saves the day. Kevin Dyson was short that day.
Yeah, that was.
I don't think that's what it says in the paper, but I know it says Mike Jones saves the day. Isaac Bruce makes the play.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, that's 3 points. That's the second fewest points the Rams defense has allowed since 2017. I felt like I saw enough from the defense yesterday, but I don't think that the Panthers gave PJ Walker enough of an opportunity. It just felt like it was the Christian McCaffrey show, and he's a tough player to stop. I mean, if that's the only thing, that's your only thing that you're worried about in a game, I mean, you're going to be able to stop that in the second half. But earlier on, you're allowing some of that stuff to happen. You're breaking, but you're also bending at the same time.
It did feel like this is the game that we needed. And I don't want to sell the defense short. It really didn't even feel like Carolina was playing for a win.
No.
Like they were really going out there running the ball 3 times, 1 pass behind the line of scrimmage, and going back out and putting the defense back on the field.
Yeah,
I think the Rams needed that, and even with that, it took them a while to get going, but they figured it out, and they kind of got to that point. And that's what a good team does. So you can't really fault them or be mad.
Yeah, the offense on both sides it was like a screen game. That was how everybody was able to get their completions in this game was let's dump it all short pass game, get the ball in our hands of our playmakers. Even on 3rd and 16, let's run a screen to Robinson. We'll run a draw to Darrell Henderson, like a lot of things that, you wouldn't typically do in a Sean McVay offense, but had to kind of come out of the playbook in this game. And I just want to show this real quick. First, Alaric Jackson Heisman. He likes to embrace the muffin top. He came out on Twitter. He says he's a fan of the muffin top, and the muffin top gives him extra energy, and you could flip a muffin top into a pancake. You could do all those things. He's a big fan of Alaric.
The Jackson 5.
I hope that the continuity on the offensive line continues. And then, Nick, if you could see this, if you look at the Rams, if you could find them on this chart, the Rams are, let's see, 27.47% in terms of continuity with the offensive line. That is the amount of time that they've had with continuity with the offensive line with a full unit in place. Look, only the Raiders are lower.
Wow, and the Panthers have 100%.
Yep. Panthers have 100%. The Bengals are at 98.26%. There's some legitimate fear to be had there. So, I mean, I think when everything kind of push comes to shove, once you get players back, once you get through the bye, you get healthy, you could add a couple of pieces. San Francisco week doesn't look as difficult as it looked the week prior, and San Francisco has to play Kansas City next weekend.
Yeah, we're gonna get. I don't know. I'm always going to be scared of San Francisco, at least right now, in this era because of their record against us. But it's just, to me, it seems like a lose-lose. It's like, all right, we get them after Kansas City. If they lose to Kansas City, are they really going to lose 3 in a row? But then it's like, if they beat Kansas City, oh God, they just beat Kansas City.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's no way to win with the 49ers.
No. But unless it's the NFC Championship game.
Exactly. There you go. Bingo.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. That's what we got for you tonight.
Yeah. Panthers episode only going to be 40 minutes. There's not a lot, you know?
We put something
We're 10 minutes shorter than where we're usually at.
Hey, we appreciate you guys listening. If something crazy happens over the next week or so, I'm sure we'll be jumping right back on the podcast. Otherwise, we're going to try to enjoy the bye too. You'll see shorts coming out from us, maybe a couple of smaller posts.
Yeah, maybe I'll do a quick funny Knicks picks.
You could do a quick funny Knicks picks, whatever. But thank you for listening. Thank you for liking, subscribing. Thank you for following. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys, and go Rams.
Go Rams, everybody. Enjoy the bye. Go apple picking.
Do something fun.
It's the apple picking weekend. Let the girls in your life enjoy you on a Sunday.
Enjoy the weather. You can't make me go apple picking, but enjoy the weather.
Pumpkin picking.
Peace.
Wait. Do the like and subscribe thing again.
Fine. Like and subscribe. Thanks for listening, guys. Peace.